It started with a wedding invitation. Cream-colored, thick as cardboard, embossed in gold. My cousin Rachel's wedding. I hadn't heard from her in years, not since we were teenagers whispering secrets and dreams under summer stars. But there it was, addressed formally to Miss Evelyn Marlowe, tucked inside my mailbox like it belonged. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw the note scribbled at the bottom in her handwriting, "Evie, I want you there. Please come. We have a lot to talk about." I stared at it, heart tightening in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Because Rachel's name meant her name would be there too. My mother. The woman who hadn't spoken to me in 4 years. The woman who chose silence over me. "Are you going?" my roommate Jasmine asked that night as I stood in the kitchen, clutching the invitation like it might bite. "I don't know," I said, voice low. "Would you?" Jasmine poured tea, handed me a mug. "Depends. Do you want closure or war?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. But 3 days later, I packed my dress, bought a plane ticket, and whispered to myself, maybe it's time. I wasn't going for revenge. Not yet. But I wasn't going for reconciliation either. I was going for truth. The estate was just as I remembered, lavish, spotless, and colder than the winter air that clung to my coat. I stepped out of the car, heels clicking against the marble path, staring up at the sprawling house my mother always called her greatest investment. Not her children. Not her family. Her house. The door opened before I could knock. A flurry of pearls and perfume greeted me. Evelyn, my Aunt Lorna blinked, forcing a smile. "Well. We didn't think you'd actually come." "Why?" I asked. "Rachel invited me." "She did. But you know, things have been delicate." Delicate. That was her word for betrayal now? Inside, chandeliers sparkled, and laughter echoed from the main hall. It smelled like roses and roast beef, like nothing had ever gone wrong. I moved through the house like a ghost, people glancing, whispering. A few nodded politely. Most didn't bother hiding their stares. I spotted Rachel near the bar, her ivory dress hugging her like a secret. She saw me and broke into a genuine smile. "You came." I nodded, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. "You asked me to." She pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry about everything. About how they treated you." "They?" She hesitated, eyes darting. "You should know, she's here." My chest went still. And then I saw her. Standing across the room in a navy gown, sipping champagne, pretending I didn't exist. "My mother." Rachel whispered, "She said you were dead to her. But she watches your interviews. She knows your company's making waves." I stared at the woman who birthed me but never mourned me. And whispered, "Good. Let her see what she lost." Because I hadn't come to make peace. I had come to let her witness the storm she created. Dinner was served under chandeliers that dripped like icicles. The table stretched long, elegant, and too full of people who once turned their backs on me. I was seated at the far end, next to a waiter's station and out of my mother's line of sight. Intentional. Rachel leaned over. "I tried to move your seat." She insisted on the chart. "It's fine," I said. But it wasn't. Every laugh felt rehearsed. Every glance my way came with a flash of discomfort, like they weren't sure if I was here to smile or explode. Then came the toasts. One by one, families stood to praise Rachel and her new husband. When my mother rose, the room stilled like breath held underwater. She lifted her glass. "To Rachel. The pride of our family. A woman who brings us all together, those who stayed, and those who wandered." The glass in my hand tightened. Rachel glanced at me, eyes wide. I gave her a small nod. "Let her speak." My mother's smile was polished, her voice sugar-slicked. "Some daughters choose other paths. Careers. attention, distance. But today, we welcome everyone. Even those we haven't seen in years. Eyes turned toward me. I raised my glass slightly and held her gaze. To those who wandered, I said, and found more than they were ever given. A beat of silence. Then a slow, cautious clap from Rachel's fiancé. Then more. Polite. Hesitant. My mother's smile didn't falter, but her knuckles whitened around her glass. She wanted obedience. I brought reflection. And that was just the beginning. After dinner, I stepped onto the veranda, needing air. The chatter behind me thinned, replaced by the soft hush of winter wind rustling through the evergreens. The stars above the estate flickered like a memory I didn't trust. You know, came a voice behind me, smooth and amused. She didn't even recognize the dress. Rachel. I turned to her, arching a brow. This one? I asked, brushing my hand over the midnight blue silk that fell to my ankles. She nodded. You wore it to your first investor gala. I saw the photo online. She complimented it tonight, said it was elegant for someone like you, but she didn't realize it was your design. She never paid attention, I murmured. Not to me. Just to how well I reflected her. Rachel leaned beside me on the stone railing. You didn't come just for me, did you? I looked at her then, the girl I used to share secrets with. I came because I needed her to see the woman she threw away. She sighed. And now that she has? I looked through the glass doors at the woman who birthed me, still flawless, still surrounded, still untouchable. Now I need her to understand what that cost. Rachel didn't ask what I meant. She didn't need to. Because she remembered the night everything shattered. 4 years ago. My acceptance letter to an international startup incubator. The first step in what would become my tech empire. The opportunity that meant moving across the ocean, leaving behind everything, especially the expectations my mother tried to stitch into my skin like embroidery. You're embarrassing yourself, my mother had hissed that night. Running after some fantasy while your cousin finishes law school. What are you going to be, Evelyn? A woman in a hoodie with a laptop? That's not a legacy. You mean it's not your legacy, I had said. She didn't reply. She just left the room and never came back. That was the last conversation we had. Until tonight. The doors creaked open behind me. Footsteps, measured, slow. I didn't need to turn to know. Evelyn, she said. Her voice hadn't changed. It was still rich with practiced charm. Still carried the faint echo of every reprimand dressed as advice. I was wondering when you'd speak to me, I said, keeping my eyes on the stars. You made quite a scene with your toast. I thought it was rather tame. She stepped beside me, arms crossed delicately. Why now? I turned to her, finally. Her face was perfectly made up. Not a wrinkle out of place, not a flaw uncorrected. But her eyes, there was something uncertain there. Something hollow. I came because you erased me, I said. And I needed you to see I survived it. Her jaw tightened. You left. You pushed, I corrected. And when I didn't fold, you punished me for it. She blinked. Is that really how you see it? No, I said. That's how it was. You didn't believe in me. Not when I won the regional science fair. Not when I taught myself to code. Not even when I got that scholarship to MIT. You dropped out, she snapped. Yes, I said. To launch a platform now used in 12 countries. To create jobs. To prove that success isn't about following your path. It's about finding my own. Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, you always were so difficult. I smiled. No. I just stopped being easy. A gust of wind swept past us, lifting a few strands of her carefully arranged hair. Do you know, she said, suddenly quiet, how hard it was to admit I might have been wrong? Do you know how much I bled trying to prove I deserved your love? Her eyes flicked to mine. And for the first time in years, they didn't look down at me. They didn't judge. They wavered. I was scared, she said. I didn't understand the world you were entering. It felt out of control. You felt out of control. You mean I felt out of your control? She didn't argue. I looked down at the ring on my finger, the one I'd bought myself the day my company hit its first million. Simple. Silver. Earned. I didn't come here for forgiveness, I said. And I don't expect an apology. I came because for the first time, I know who I am. And I needed to say it aloud, near you, without fear. She blinked. Her lips parted, but no words came. So I gave her the only mercy I had left. I hope one day you're proud of me, I said. But if not, I'm finally okay with that. Then I turned, heels echoing down the stone steps. I didn't wait for her to follow. And she didn't. The next morning, I found myself staring out of the guest room window, watching frost bloom across the edge of the garden. The estate always looked peaceful in winter. Still. Like it had secrets buried under the snow. I had secrets, too. Downstairs, preparations for the brunch reception buzzed in polite chaos, waitstaff arranging platters, the smell of baked eggs and citrus tea drifting through the halls. I dressed slowly, choosing a tailored navy suit, minimalist jewelry, no makeup. Just clarity. As I descended the staircase, Rachel intercepted me with a folded envelope. She left this on my nightstand, she said quietly, pressing it into my hand. Said it was time? My name was written across it in my mother's delicate script. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were two things. A single sheet of paper with her signature at the bottom. And a photograph. The paper was a formal amendment to her will. I was back in it. Not just as a name, but as an equal beneficiary. I blinked. It wasn't about the money. Not really. It was about the acknowledgement. About being visible again. I turned the photograph over. It was old as me at 10 years old, holding a small circuit board in my lap, smiling wide at something off camera. My hands were dirty, knees scraped, but my eyes were full of joy. My mother stood behind me, distracted, looking elsewhere. On the back, she'd written, "You were always building. I just never knew how to watch." The page trembled in my hand. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked. "I don't know yet." She nodded. Later, at the reception, voices filled the atrium with cautious celebration. I made my way to the far end of the room, where sunlight fell like syrup across a glass piano. I wasn't hiding. I was observing. My mother was talking to a lawyer, hers, I assumed. When her eyes met mine, she paused mid-sentence. She didn't walk over. I didn't need her to. Not anymore. "Evie," a voice called behind me. I turned to see Aunt Lorna. She offered a smile, though her eyes remained sharp. "I heard about the will. News travels fast. You always were clever. Just like your father." It was the first time anyone had mentioned him this weekend. My chest tightened. "He believed in you," she said. "Even when we didn't. He told me once, she's going to build something that matters." My breath caught. "He said that?" She nodded. "The year before he passed. He saw what none of us were willing to admit. You weren't difficult. You were determined." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I simply nodded. "Be careful with the legacy," she added. "It's heavy. But you? You've got the shoulders for it." I didn't expect her kindness. It made the silence that followed even more precious. Just then, the band began playing soft music, and Rachel appeared at my side again. Come, she said. You need to see this. She led me to a side room, quiet, almost forgotten. On a small wooden table sat a box. What is it? She kept it, Rachel said. All these years. I didn't know. Inside were drawings I had made. Letters I wrote from boarding school. Newspaper clippings of my achievements she never acknowledged aloud. Even a printed photo of the tech magazine cover that featured me last year. She watched, I murmured. She just didn't know how to reach you. I stared at the box, heart aching in strange shapes. Or maybe she didn't think I'd come back. You didn't, Rachel said. You built your own house. I looked at her then. Yes. And I filled it with people who clapped for me, even when they didn't understand the blueprint. Rachel smiled. So what now? I ran my fingers over the edge of the box. Now. I take what I need. And leave the rest. Because some legacies aren't inherited. They're rewritten. I found her later, alone in the solarium, hands wrapped around a teacup she wasn't drinking from. The sunlight made her look softer, but not smaller. My mother was never small. She occupied space like a queen, even in silence. I read the will, I said, stepping into the light. She didn't look up. I figured. Why now? I asked. After all this time? Her fingers tightened around the cup. Because I realized legacy without love is just paperwork. And you, she glanced at me then, eyes rimmed red. You didn't need my approval. You built something without me. That frightened me more than I ever admitted. I swallowed. It hurt. I know. She paused. And I can't undo it. A long silence stretched between us. No fireworks. No apologies dressed in ribbons. Just two women finally seeing each other without the war between them. I'm not here for a fresh start, I said. I'm here to close the loop. She nodded once. Then let me say this, I see you now. I see everything. That was enough. Not forgiveness. Not forgetting. But acknowledgement. And in that quiet, something healed. Before I left, Rachel handed me a flash drive. Don't open it until you get home, she said with a grin. When I did, alone in my apartment that night, I found a video montage. Footage she'd quietly collected over the years. News clips, interviews, even security footage of my TED Talk from the balcony she hadn't been able to attend. In every frame, I was speaking, building, growing. At the end, one line appeared in bold. You were always the legacy. I sat back, eyes stinging, overwhelmed by the love I never saw, but had always had, tucked away in Rachel's quiet loyalty. Some people don't need to be loud to stand by you. A week later, a letter arrived in thick ivory paper. From my mother. Inside, a handwritten note. If you ever decide to write a memoir, call it Uninvited. Because that's how I made you feel. But you came anyway. And you reminded me that the strongest builders are the ones who survive without a blueprint. I can't promise I'll ever know how to love the right way. But I hope you know now, I always wanted to. I placed the letter in my desk drawer, beneath a photo of me at that first startup gala. Standing alone. Standing tall. Some truths take years to arrive. This one came right on time. 2 months later, I was invited to speak on a national morning show. Live, glossy, high stakes. The host leaned in with practiced interest. Evelyn, how did you find the strength to build such an empire after being estranged from your family? I smiled, steady. I didn't build it after. I built it without. And now? I paused. Now, I don't need applause. I've already clapped for myself. She blinked, caught off guard. I was never the black sheep, I continued. I was the blueprint they didn't understand. And sometimes, you have to build alone to prove the house will stand. The room felt quiet. And somewhere, I knew, she was watching. On the 1-year anniversary of Rachel's wedding, I returned. Not to make peace. To show them peace already lived within me. I parked the same car. Walked the same marble path. But this time, my heels didn't echo with doubt. They rang with certainty. Inside, the family gathered. Some still whispered. Some smiled, unsure. But my mother walked toward me slowly and said just one word. Welcome. No performance. No pressure. Just presence. And I, no longer seeking, no longer waiting, offered a small, honest smile. I'm here, I said. But I brought my own table. Because some women are not born to be seated. We build our own rooms. And we lock the door behind us.